Um, we're going to share with you today and tomorrow lots of different strategies and practices and examples. Some of them might feel useful to you and some of them not useful at all. That's totally fine. If we share 3 strategies or practices that aren't useful at all, but one where you think, that one, that could be useful for us, we'll feel happy about that. We want to give you a whole menu of ideas, practices, to see which ones are right for your school at this time, for your teachers at this time. We want to meet you where you are. And there's many entry points to this work. There is no answer to education. There's no single thing that fixes education. It's not broken. It works for some and not for others. So we just want to share practices in the hope that some of them may be a good entry point for you. We don't know for your school which would be the best entry point. So keep an eye out for, interesting but no, interesting but not. Oh, that one? Maybe my faculty, that would be, or my community, that would be a good starting place. We want to talk specifically with models and examples. So we're not going to just share ideas. We're going to show you how does it actually work in a school. My job in this first half is to give you a broad overview. I'm going to show you how this works in many, many different schools. And because I personally work with more than 150 schools in America, and just got back from working in Spain with schools, before that working in Japan with schools, and I'm privileged enough to get to work with Kate and Gwyn and their schools, we'll try to give examples from different places. When Gwyn and Kate take over, we'll stop the overview, the survey, and we'll go deep. Because if there's one school I had to pick in the world that I'd say you should visit this one school, it would be theirs. And so I'm going to give you the big overview. They're going to give you an in-depth case study of what used to be one school and now is 8 that use their model. But there's no school I'd more recommend than the school that they have founded and then spread to 8. Okay, I'm going to start with a story. It's not about school at first, so you have to bear with me. My father worked in a chemical plant. He worked in the same chemical plant for 47 years. In his era, if you kept the same job your whole life, you would get a pension, and then you wouldn't have to work. You would be taken care of, even in America, which has very little social services. So he worked in this chemical plant for 47 years, and his idea was, I am going to retire someday. I'm going to have a great pension. I won't ever have to work again, and he and my mother are going to be able to travel around the world and see places for the first time. And so he retired at age 68. He was so excited, but he died at age 69. Was unexpected, just had a heart attack. But this is not a sad story, because that one year, from age 68 to age 69, was the best year of his entire life. So he and my mother traveled to Japan, they traveled to Europe, they traveled to China. Like, it was an amazing year for them. So my mother called me up and she said, we just got back from Europe. You have to come hear our stories and see our pictures. So I got in my truck, I drove 5 hours to their home, I came into their house, and they had a lot of pictures. And if you are a younger person here, I have to explain that there was a time when pictures were a physical thing. They were not on a device. You had to bring your camera film to a store and they would give you a little envelope full of these pictures. So they had physical pictures all over their coffee table, their sofa, their dining room table, their kitchen table. It was just all pictures. And they were so excited to tell me these stories. And as they told me them, they hold up these pictures. And as I looked at the pictures, I noticed something a little strange, which was every picture was framed by a train window. And they were all a little bit blurry. They were castles, cityscapes, cathedrals, all a little blurry, all with a train window. And then they'd argue, this picture is from this is from France. No, maybe it was Italy. No, it was no, maybe it was France. Every picture was that way. They had no idea where it was from. If you had given them an assessment about Europe at this point, they wouldn't have done so well. I said, how many countries did you visit? And they said, well, it was a package deal, Ron. It was 14 countries in 12 days. And I thought, oh, no wonder they have no idea. They had a really good time, but it was a blur. And I thought, what if they had done a package deal that was only 5 countries in 12 days? What if they had gotten off the train in Italy, in Florence, in Firenze, and gone to the Uffizi Gallery and seen the Michelangelo David, and they had had wonderful Italian meals and met Italian people, and they spent a few days in Italy. They would have come back and said, oh my gosh, Ron, Italy is the most amazing place in the world. We can't wait to go back. The artwork, the people, the food. They couldn't do that because they had just been on that train for 14 days, 12 days. And I had this epiphany right then, which was, that was my entire educational experience when I was in public school. I was on that train. And we never stopped. We had to cover so much material, so many concepts, so many standards, so much stuff that we had to learn the quadratic formula, we had to learn the formulas in physics, we had to learn the dates of every war, we had to learn the name of every author. We memorized stuff for tests. We got through those tests and we were still on that train, and those dates went by the windows and the formulas went by the windows, and I can't remember any of them now. And if I needed to, I'd just take out my phone and find them. But it was all a blur. And we never got off the train for me to learn something deeply, to get really deep into something, to create something beautiful. And I swore at that point, I am not going to do that to my students in my classroom. We are going to stop the train. And we're going to get off sometimes, and we're going to do something really deep and well. And so, I'm talking today about beautiful work, and Kate and Gwen are going to talk about beautiful work, but you can't do beautiful work when you're riding on that train. You've got to stop the train occasionally. I'm not here to tell teachers or leaders where to stop that train, or when to stop it, or for how long. This is your choice, you as a leader and your teachers. In their maths class, in their history class, in their second grade class, they have to think, where are we going to stop this year? But I hope they think we're going to stop somewhere for a few days, for a week. And during that week, we're going to learn something so deeply kids will never forget it. They're going to create something so beautiful they can't believe it. Because at the end of the year, that's what they're going to remember. Not the train ride, they're going to remember those places where we stopped. And it's a strange metaphor, but it was very helpful for me in my teaching career, because every year I think, I'm going to stop the train here, and we're going to really be great about this. We're going to create something meaningful. Not in a prescriptive way. I don't know where you want to stop, I don't know where your teacher wants to stop, but I want to empower teachers to think, we can stop the train sometimes. It's not always coverage. It's not always racing through content. All right. The talk today is called Beautiful Work. I'm going to talk for a little while, then we'll talk in small groups, talk for a little more, we'll talk in small groups. Why does this matter? Like, what's the why here? Because the students that we teach, the students that we're privileged to have, when they're done in our schools, they will never again be judged by exams. For the rest of their life, they're going to be judged by 2 things: the kind of human being that they are and the kind of work that they do. It doesn't matter what choice they make, whether they're raising a family, whether they're being a surgeon, whether they're being a pilot, doesn't matter. An architect, a plumber, the quality of their work and the quality of their character is what matters. That's all that matters. For all of us. should be the organizing principle of schools. Schools should be organized around cultivating students who are good human beings, who have a great work ethic and high standards for the work that they do. And just to give you a reminder of why this matters to us, if you were to go into surgery or someone you loved were to go into surgery tomorrow, I bet you'd be thinking, I hope that surgeon is really good at what she does. If you were to get on a plane next week, I think you'd be thinking, I hope this pilot is really good at what she does. It really matters to us. If you have a plumber come to your house to fix your water, you want them to be really good at what they do. It doesn't matter what it is. We should all be great at what we do. And it's hard to get great when you're on the train all the time. The organization I work with, Expeditionary Learning, is now called EL Education because Expeditionary Learning was a really long name. So Kentucky Fried Chicken became KFC. Expeditionary Learning, we just became EL. So EL Education, Expeditionary Learning, same thing. We were born 32 years ago from a marriage between two organizations, Harvard Graduate School of Education, which is where we get our commitment to academic excellence, because Harvard University is considered by many to be the best university in America. Not quite Cambridge and Oxford, but for America, it's top notch. And Outward Bound, which is the organization that brings people into the wilderness, but not to teach wilderness skills. They bring people into the wilderness to learn how to work as a team and work on their character. This is a picture of a bunch of kids who made it up to the top of the mountain together in an Outward Bound course. That's the idea of Outward Bound, is we are in this together. We don't race to the top of the mountain by ourselves. Our job is to make sure all of our crewmates get to the top of the mountain. And it's harder that way. I've been on Outward Bound courses my whole life, and I'm just going to be honest with you. When I start an Outward Bound course, I'm kind of a jerk on the inside. I try not to let it show, but on the inside I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to be uncomfortable all week. I'm not going to have my phone. I'm not going to have my Diet Coke. I'm not going to have the food I like. I'm going to be sleeping on the ground. But worst of all, I have to worry about all these other people. I could get to the top of that mountain, but you know, if Craig and I, if Andrew and I rush up and we leave people behind, like, it's going to be bad. So now I have to worry about the people that are struggling. You know, I don't say any of that, but I know I'm feeling it. And inside, I'm just being a jerk. All the sweating, filthy, I'm not comfortable. And then I start realizing, God, everyone feels this way. And some people are feeling more this way than I am. And so over the course of a week, I start helping more people, start pitching in, doing more things. Everyone else starts helping me. And somehow at the end of the week, we're all at the top of the mountain, and it's like, oh my goodness, we did this together. And it's a group of strangers, but we're all hugging each other and crying, and we feel like we made this together. We did this together. And then I think, boy, I was a jerk at the beginning of this trip. I'm a way better person now. I'm thinking of everyone else rather than just thinking of myself. And then I think, why am I not that way every day? Why is my life not like that? And I get resolved to be more other-oriented and more team-oriented. That was our vision for school. What if school were more like an Outward Bound trip? Adventurous, challenging, and also we are in this together. So when we talk about student achievement in our EL schools, we use a three-dimensional framework. We don't say student achievement is just academic results. We say student achievement is the academic results and the mastery of academic knowledge. Equally, it's the character. It's creating a good human being. If you are a smart person who's a jerk, it does no good for the world. There are a lot of powerful people in the world right now who are not great people. They're not helping the world. So your character matters as much as your academics and your craftsmanship, your commitment to doing your work well. So we say this is a three-dimensional vision of student achievement, not a one-dimensional vision. And when we assess our schools, We assess our schools in all three dimensions. We have a framework for deeper instruction, which starts with challenging students. Engaging is second. The engagement comes from the challenge. It's like when you look at that mountain and you think, how the heck are we going to get up that? That's the engagement I want. We want students to be a little overwhelmed by the challenge and then to be engaged and then to be empowered to lead that trip up the mountain. We have a framework for character, and that framework at its center is contributing to a better world. Students who are effective learners and ethical people, all in service of contributing to a better world. So at the center, it's all putting kids on a mission. We are getting smart to do good. We are working hard at school, not for our own growth, not for our own edification only, but also to make our families and our community and the world a better place. It's a virtuous mission. We're on a mission in this school. That's our vision for EL education. And of course, we have attributes of high quality work. I love that Austin's butterfly is on everyone's table. This is our vision of we're trying to create beautiful work. And by beautiful work, I don't just mean pretty. I mean work that's complex, well-crafted, and authentic. And we'll dig into that more tomorrow. Okay, enough blather here. I need to take you into some stories. What does it look like? Or why does it matter? Well, it matters because when students do work that's way better than they thought they could, it changes who they are. They are never the same student. Once a student does something that's amazing, they think, I'm capable of that. And they never have the same self-image again. So I have this incredibly privileged position to go around America and meet with students. And the students that I meet with are always in low-income communities, urban or rural. So out in the countryside, like many of your schools, or in the middle of the city. They all come from students whose parents don't have a lot of money. But these students do amazing work. And when they share their work with me, oh my goodness, this is what they look like. They have these faces that are just beaming with pride. Because when they do amazing work, they have this whole different sense of, oh my gosh, can you believe I did this? Their parents feel like, can you believe I did this? Like this girl, Larissa, who created a graphic novel about the life of Langston Hughes. Wow, like this is a transformational thing when kids do beautiful work. I've been working for the last year in the poorest section of America. It's called the Bronx in New York City. Every school I go into, they send me all the students who want to share their beautiful work with me, and I spend the day meeting with students sharing work that they're proud of. It's the coolest job in the world for me. This school principal sent me a bunch of student work ahead of time, and one of the things they sent me was an amazing essay by a 5th grade girl, 10 years old. And I love this essay. This essay was on the novel Esperanza Rising. It was this beautifully written piece. And I knew it wasn't written by AI because it was written in her handwriting. And it was incredible. It ends with this sentence, hence, Esperanza's story is not only one of a privileged girl's reversal of fortune, but also starting over. And I thought, oh my God, what 10-year-old writes like that? She writes like a review in a newspaper by an adult journalist. And I thought, okay, this girl, Jacqueline Tolentino, she's my new hero. And I used this in workshops all over America, this piece of work. We read it together. We talked about what made it great writing. We talked about how could we inspire other kids to do great writing like that. And then when I was meeting with this group of students, we ran around the circle, people introduced themselves. One little girl introduced herself and she said, my name is Jacqueline and I'm in 5th grade. And I said, are you Jacqueline Tolentino? And she said, yes, sir, I am. I said, you wrote the essay on Esperanza Rising that ends with, hence, it's not just a story of a privileged young girl's reversal of fortune, but also starting over? And they're like, Jackie, you're famous. He's memorized your whole essay. I said, Jacqueline, you're my new hero. Like, you're my favorite author right now. Can I talk to you after our circle? And she said, yes, sir. And many people said to me, well, that's a great essay, but I bet her parents helped her a lot with this essay. And I thought, yeah, maybe, I don't know. So I met with Jacqueline after. Here's Jacqueline. And I said, Jacqueline, can you tell me about creating your essay? She said, I worked really hard on it. I revised it a lot. I went through many drafts. I said, did your parents help you? She said, they really would have liked to, but they don't speak English. And I thought, oh, well, that takes that excuse out for all those teachers. She said, they do speak some English, but they emigrated here from Mexico and their English isn't very good, so my sister and I are working really hard. I read for 3 hours a night. I'm really trying to get good at English. And I thought, okay, now you're more my hero. So this is what inspires me, is students doing amazing things. Okay, I want to take this to a place that's closer to the life that many of you lead. So I've done no work before today on the Air Peninsula. I've not been to your schools yet. We've not been to your schools yet. So all I could do is go into my archives and think, where are some of the schools I work with that are a little bit like the schools you work with? So I want to bring you to Moscow, Idaho, in the western part of the United States, because it's a little bit like some of the schools you work with. This is the view from the front of the school. You can see it's a green field after harvesting, and this is the view of the center of town. Looks a little bit like Port Lincoln. That's grain storage, which you can just see right outside the window if we were to open these curtains. So you get this town, right? This town is a grain center of grain storage, except that it's not on the coast, so it has to be trucked out. Can't be sent out to boats. Students at this rural school did a project that just blew me away, and it's a great example of beautiful work. Here's the project. Students were paired with animals in a local animal shelter. These students were in 4th grade, so they were 10 years old, 9 years old. Each student was paired with a particular animal. So one little girl was paired with Reagan the cat. Her mom would not let her take home Reagan the cat. So her job was, how do I get Reagan the cat adopted? So the first thing they did is they learned the story of Reagan the cat, and they took notes, and they used those notes to create a poem about the life of Reagan. And the poem had to kind of move your heart a little bit. Then they took a digital picture of Reagan and of Freddie Mercury, and they took that picture and then started to do an illustration, a portrait of Reagan, Freddie Mercury, Angelina, so that people would see that portrait and think, oh my goodness, I have to adopt that guy. And the combination of the poem and the portrait was put on a big poster. And they printed these posters and they put them up around the community in places where people had to wait. Doctor's offices, dentist offices, government offices. And so in the waiting rooms, there'd be posters of these animals, and people would read the poems and they'd see these portraits, and it was amazing. I want to read one of those poems to you. The poem is about this animal. The animal is Bella, the dog. Okay? One new start. I arrive. The one who loves me drops me off. Too much work, I guess. Betrayed, afraid, left here. The gravel stings my paws. Loud neighbors. Better get used to it. My longing eyes stare into you, traumatized beyond hope. My hair grows in one direction, but life does not. Better get used to it. I try to slow life down, fetch tennis balls, savor belly rubs. They help some. But one day, two people come and I ride away in one car to one new home forever. I hope. One new start. Bella by Jack. So that poem by 10-year-old Jack and this picture of Bella was one of the posters around town. Can you guess what happened when they put these posters all around town? Like, how long are you gonna sit looking at that picture and reading that poem and not go home and try to talk your husband or your wife into adopting this doll? And so, as soon as these posters got up, the school started to get phone calls. Reagan got adopted. Freddie Mercury got adopted. Angelina got adopted. Every day a new one. And when that call came in, the principal would get on the loudspeaker and say, Bella got adopted. All the kids in the school would stand up and cheer, even the little kids, the older kids, they would cry. And when I learned of this project, I thought, I am going to fly to Moscow, Idaho, and meet these kids. They are my new heroes. And you know what it's like in Australia? It's like that in America. I had to fly to Spokane, Washington, and drive 3.5 hours through the wheat fields and the desert to get to Moscow, Idaho. And when I got there, I talked to these kids, and I said, what did you learn from this? And they said, we learned we could change the world if we do beautiful work. And I said, why does it have to be beautiful work? They said, we could have just put photographs up around town, and everyone would have ignored them. I said, well, why did they not ignore these? And they said, how could you ignore these portraits with these eyes? How could you ignore these poems that have feeling in them? It worked because it was hard work. It worked because we did 6 drafts. It worked because it was beautiful. And we can do beautiful work the rest of our lives. We're only 10 years old. Look, we have our whole life ahead of us. And I thought, yeah, that's why you're my heroes. While I was at that school, this school does not have a library, because you know some rural schools don't have much space. So all the library books are down the hallway, the central hallway of this tiny school. While I was walking down that central hallway, I found a plastic basket of books, but the books were stapled together, kind of crudely stapled together. And they all, it turns out, were written by the same boy named Henry. So I stopped one of the older kids in the school, an 8th grader, and said, can you tell me about this basket of books? And they said, oh, that's Henry's basket. Henry arrived in the school in kindergarten, which you would call reception. He arrived at age 5, and he only had a few words, but from the first day here, he decided, I love books, I'm gonna publish books for the school every day. So every day he wrote another book, and he published it, and he put it in his basket for other kids to read. And I said to this 8th grade girl, do you all read Henry's books? And she's like, of course, all of us, every one. So I sat down and I read all of Henry's books, which they didn't take too long because he didn't have a lot of words yet. And then I thought, I gotta meet Henry. He's another hero for me. So I went into the reception room. I said, is Henry in there? They're like, yeah, that guy right there. And I walked over and I said, are you Henry the author? And he said, yes, I am. And I said, can I ask you about one of your books? He said, of course. And I said, I'm wondering about this book. The title is, Every Camel Wants to Be a Wolf. And he said, that was a good choice. And I said, why? He said, it's an important book. And I said, why is it important, Henry? He said, it was my first publication. I hardly had any words when I wrote it. And so, here's the cover. Every camel wants to be a wolf. And I said, but why does every camel want to be a wolf? And he said, oh, Mr. Berger, wasn't my idea. This is a famous song. I said, I don't think I know this song, Henry. And then he just stood up in the classroom and he sang it out loud. Because he was a kindergarten. He was a reception kid, 5 years old. Now, I don't know if you would know this song in Australia because it's an 80s song and this is like really dating me, but there was a group called Tears for Fears, and they have a song called Everybody Wants to Rule the World. So Henry got up and he goes, every camel wants to be a wolf. And I said, I know that song. He said, yeah, it's a famous song. It got me inspired to write this book. So there's Henry with his book, and that's the back of the book. And on the back, he's already advertising his next publication. Look for My Pet Cat. So I thought, I love this. Like, he is contributing great work every single day as a 5-year-old. Okay. I want to bring you to another rural school. And the reason I want to bring you to this rural school is that most of the students in this school are indigenous. This school is 5.5-hour drive from any airport. And it's up in the Sierra Mountains, and it is next to a Paiute reservation. So almost everyone who goes to the school lives on this American Indian reservation of Paiutes. And you can see where it's set. It's just a school next to the mountains. Like, this is hard to get to. So many of you know this from Australia. This is the reservation that the Indians live on. It's not a beautiful place, but they have a lot of pride in their tribe. And fortunately, there's a great relationship between the school and the reservation and the tribe. The kids in the school are mostly indigenous Native American kids, and those that are not are rancher kids. So the white kids in the school live on farms and ranches, and the Native American students, the indigenous students, live on the reservation. And in this school, they seem to love each other, which I love. This is prom in this school, so you know what rural prom might look like. It's not a fancy thing, right? But it's a thing of pride. I don't know if they do prom in Australia, but it's a thing in America. You dress up. In fact, I asked the junior girls, I said, what are you most proud of this year? And they said, Mr. Berger, we're most proud of having planned and run prom ourselves. I said, who planned and ran it? They said, the junior girls. I said, how many junior girls are there? They said, us, the 4 of us. We're the only girls our age in the school. It was 3 Indian girls and 1 white girl. And I said, you planned and ran prom yourself? They said, everything. We funded, we did it, the whole thing. I said, how did it go? They said, we set us a goal. If fewer than 8 students signed up for prom, we'd cancel. But if we got more than 8 people to sign up, we would do it. And I said, how did that go? They said, we only had 7 people signed up the day before, and we did a big push, and we got 13 students to come to prom, and it was a total success. And they were so proud of it. I thought, God, good for you, taking your agency here. We are trying to give these students a chance to go to college or university if they can. And it's a thing that didn't exist for so many people, or the rancher kids or the indigenous kids. But it's now an opportunity for most of the kids in this school. It's a small graduating class, as I said, just a few kids every year. Why is it working? They're using the exact same practices as Kate and Gwen use at XP, and we use in all of our schools. The kids are using the outdoors for their research and field work all the time. They're not always in the school. They're out in the rivers, the streams, the prairies, the fields, the mountains. They're taking data samples. They're doing censuses of what's out there. They're doing community work. They are always out there in the world in a way that all the families appreciate. Rancher families and Native American Indian families all understand you learn a lot from being outdoors. The students present continually to the whole group. So students are always on stage like this, giving presentations to the school community. Students of every age are always up, presenting to the whole school community. Their learning is public. Every student is a public speaker in this school. Their identities are affirmed in every class all the time. Students are proud of who they are, proud of their backgrounds, proud of the color of their skin, proud of their heritage. And they're proud of doing beautiful work. There's displays of beautiful work throughout the school. Everywhere you turn, this is second grade work, so eight-year-old work. Everywhere you turn, there's beautiful work up in the school, and it goes through multiple drafts. You can see the Austin's butterfly process everywhere you go in the school. And the bulletin boards are amazing. It's not just the beautiful work, but it's the field work they do, it's the research they do, it's the community service they do, it's the teacher planning they do. All of it is documented on documentation panels throughout the school. The school that I think that does that best in the world is XP right now, and they'll share that with you. This is a school that does that really well. So whether it's first grade, or whether it's 8th grade, or high school kids, 12th grade, everything they do gets documented in a way that everyone else can learn from. It's public. They have a business at the school to raise money for their field work. The business is worm farming. So they farm for worms, and they sell those worms to fishermen. The 5th graders do all the farming, and the high school kids do the sales. So the high school kids have a stand, and all the local people stop all the time to buy worms for their fishing, and they raise money to fund their field work. And the beautiful work they did was a community service project that really blew me away. America has a terrible heritage with our indigenous peoples. It used to be that all American Indians were put in boarding schools, and they were not allowed to use their language, they had to cut their hair, and they were treated terribly. They had to give up their religion, give up their traditions, and they were not allowed in public schools. This is what an Indian boarding school looked like 100 years ago. One Indian girl who happened to be in this town fought to get into the regular public school, and the case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court 100 years ago, and she won. And she was allowed in that school. This is the school that I am privileged to work with. The students raised money to create a statue to honor her for being the Martin Luther King of indigenous people in America, the leader of the civil rights movement. This year was the 100th anniversary of that brave student who changed the law in America, and Native American Indians from all over America came to this school at a convention planned and run by students to honor the heritage of civil rights and social justice that she did. So, beautiful public service and beautiful celebration of social justice and civil rights. I want to bring you to England for a moment. This is a project by a teacher who's now working with Kate and Gwen at XP Schools. It's a project she did during COVID at a nursing home nearby the school, where the students asked the people in the nursing home, how can we help you during this terrible COVID time? And they said, we'd like to honor our staff. And so students created portraits of the brave staff members during COVID who were working, and these portraits were put up in the front of the nursing home as you walk in to honor the courageous staff members and honor them for their work. They're all different styles, they're all different media, and they're all beautiful. They're beautiful in their execution, and they're beautiful in what they represent, which is making heroes out of healthcare workers during COVID. And they met with the patients in the nursing home, and they said, what could we do for you? And they said, we have a blank wall that we walk by every day. Could you paint something on that wall? They interviewed them about what they wanted painted on that wall, and they painted an outdoor scene at the request of the patients. Those are the students at the end, and the teacher, Amy Hudson, who led them in this work. And this is the mural that they painted on that wall so that people who live there could feel good when they were in that hallway, feel like they were outdoors in their community and not trapped. The last example I want to give you is an urban example. 3rd and 4th grade students, 8 and 9-year-olds in Washington, D.C., were in a place in Washington, D.C., which is our nation's capital, and I'm a little ashamed to say many wealthy people in Washington, D.C., and many very poor people. The public schools are mostly poor. This school was in an area where homeless people surrounded their school. So these students created a project to support the homeless. They gathered blankets, they gathered food, they gathered clothing, and more importantly, they also met the homeless people around their building. They learned their names, they learned their stories, and they shared their own stories. Adults were with them to make sure it was safe. In that process, they learned something that they said was really important. They said, Mr. Berger, we learned that homeless people lost more than their homes. They lost their humanity in a way because people won't look at them, people won't talk to them, people don't treat them like people anymore. So we have to educate little kids that homeless people are people too. So they created a book, an ABC book of homelessness. A to Z, as Gwen and Kate would say. And in this book, every page is a page about being homeless. L is for lonely. I'm lonely because people don't notice me. And then there's an illustration of loneliness. They created 100 copies of this book and sent it to 100 schools around DC to be read in early childhood and in reception classrooms. So little kids could learn we should treat homeless people well. H is for heart. Homeless people have heart because they help other homeless people. I went to the school during this process. I asked the young man, Clarence, who did H is for heart, I said, Clarence, what do you think changed from your project? And he said, Mr. Berger, everything changed from this project. And being an adult and a little limited, I thought, what do you mean everything changed? Like there's still homeless people all around your school. You didn't solve homelessness. But I didn't say that. I just said, Clarence, what do you mean everything changed? He said, Mr. Berger, before we did this project, we were afraid of all the homeless people around our school. We didn't know them. We didn't think of them as people. We thought of them as scary. We know everyone by name. Every morning we talk to them. Every afternoon when we leave, they say, Clarence, how was your day? How are you doing with this? I say, Mildred, I'm doing well. How are you feeling today? They went from being strangers to being our friends. Everything has changed. And I thought in his lived experience and in the lived experience of those homeless people around the building, everything had changed. It was an environment of love where it had been an environment of fear. And then Henry said to me, Mr. Berger, you're a little bit famous. Can we give you a copy of A to Z, Book of Homelessness? And I said, I would be honored. He said, please share it. I said, I will. I came back to the school a few months later. He said, Mr. Berger, a much more famous people came to our school and I gave him a copy. And I'm much more excited about that. And I said, okay. This was the person who came to the school. It was the first school that the president and first lady visited after he was inaugurated because it was the highest performing school on exam scores in Washington, D.C. So even though they were doing this deep, beautiful work to help the world, they didn't sacrifice anything about results. Their school's results were the best in the entire city, and they were doing beautiful, important work. So they gave the president and the first lady a copy of the book. And Clarence said to me, Mr. Berger, the president has a copy, the first lady has a copy, you have a copy, you're a little connected now. And I said, thank you, Clarence, I really appreciate that. I was back in that school recently, and this gentleman came up to me. He said, Mr. Berger, I said, yes, do I know you? And he said, what do you mean, do you know me? It's Clarence. And I said, H is for heart? Homeless people have heart? And he said, oh my goodness, you remember my page? And I said, of course I remember your page. He said, I'm so honored that you remembered what I wrote. And I said, but what are you doing here? He said, I teach here now. And I thought, that's the way I want the world to be, when the Clarences grow up and become your great teachers. So I'm going to pause you, and we will have plenty of time for that. As I said, right now we're sharing stories and examples. Tomorrow we dig into structures and strategies underneath all those. I want to switch now to be personal. Why am I obsessed with this? Why have I spent my whole life around obsessing about beautiful work? because I live in a rural town. Some of you live rurally, some of you work rurally. I just want to show you, like, this is my life. The town that I live in is called Shutesbury. In the center of town, there's a sign for how to get anywhere where there might be something, because this town has nothing. Right? If you're in this town, you're looking like, how far do I have to go to get somewhere where there might be a store, where there might be a traffic light, where the roads might be paved. So it's rural. We have a church in the center of town. This is what churches look like in old New England. We have a post office, which is also Mary Dillman's home. So you got to go into your home to get your mail. We have a town hall for people to meet. And we have only one establishment in town. This is the only place in town where you can buy anything or do anything. It's called the Shutesbury Athletic Club. There are no weights, there are no elliptical trainers, there are no treadmills in this building. This is a bar in the middle of the woods. That's the front of the bar, that's the back of the bar. It's surrounded by pickup trucks half the year and snowmobiles the other half of the year. And if you want to talk to anyone in town, that's where you go. You go to this bar in the middle of the woods. So you can picture my town now. If you get sick in town, you better hope that it's on Tuesday or Thursday in the late morning, because otherwise there's not going to get any medical help in town. One of the most important buildings in town is the fire shed. This is where the fire engine is for our town, in case there's fires. We don't have as much problems with bush fires as you do, but we have problems in town with fires. You probably understand this, but in a town of this size, no one is paid to do anything. So all the firefighters are volunteers. Now, here's the thing. This is why I care about quality work and character. I was the only upper grade teacher in this town for 28 years. Everyone in my town is my former student. My nurse is my former student. My plumber is my former student. Everyone in the volunteer fire department are my former students. So my life is in the hands of my former students. That's what rural life is. That's why I care about the kind of human beings they are, and that's why I care about the quality of their work. These are my former students when they saved a house that was burning. These are my former students saving a dog that fell through the ice in the town pond. I am so proud of who they are. I'm so proud of their character. I'm so proud of their work ethic. My wife, years ago, had a serious accident in my home. I was not home. My grandchildren had talked me into building a playhouse for them, and they designed it, so it was not a simple playhouse. It was a castle. This is the castle I built for them. When I was building this castle, my daughter came out from her house with a phone, and she said, "It's the police." I got the phone. They said, "We're rushing your wife to the hospital in an ambulance. You have to get there right away." And it's far away. You know, if you live early, there's no hospital near where you live. So I drove a long way, got to the city, got to the hospital, and my wife was saved. She said when she called emergency services, every single person who showed up to save her life was my former student. So if you think, if someone you loved was in danger, and you called emergency services and everyone who showed up was your former student, who would you hope they would be? I didn't care what their third grade test scores were. I just didn't. I needed them to be courageous and compassionate and just really good at saving lives. And they were. I believed in my former students. They saved my life. If you call emergency services in Port Lincoln or any town here on the Eyre Peninsula, not everyone who shows up is going to be your former student, but they're all going to be someone's former student. That's why we're in this. That's why we're educators. We are raising the human beings that we need to depend on in the world. Everyone who's a first responder is somebody's former student. Every surgeon is someone's former student. Every airline pilot is someone's former. Every politician is someone's former student. It's our job not just to make them smart, but to make them have a good work ethic and a compassionate heart and courage. We have to make them respectful, responsible, great citizens because we depend on them. That's why I care about beautiful work. because I have to. My life depends on it, where I live. In my small town, no one's hired to do anything. We don't have any money in town. So when we needed a playhouse built for the kids in reception, my students designed and built a playhouse. They raised money, they designed and built a playhouse themselves, and that's the playhouse they built, and it's still there 25 years later. That young man in front of the playhouse ran into me at the lumber yard recently, and he said, "Hey, Mr. Berger, you want to see the house I just finished?" I said, "I'd love to, yeah." So I got in my truck, he got in his truck, I followed him to this house, and he said, "I have the key, you want to go inside?" And I said, "Sure." And we went inside, and he showed me the house he had just finished. And I thought, he's come a long way since building that playhouse. Another example of beautiful work. His craftsmanship I just was so proud of him. I'm proud of my students who went to university, and I'm proud of my students who are carpenters, who are nurses, who are plumbers, every one of them. That's why we're in this work. We weren't sure if the water in town was safe for animals, and so we tested the water in every lake and every stream in town. It's a little wetter than in Australia, where I live. So there are many lakes and streams. We mapped them out, and we created a report for the town on the quality of water throughout the town. That's the water quality report. It's more than 20 years old, and it's still hanging up in town hall because it's the only water quality report we have for the town. These kids did it by learning from university students and professors how to do water quality testing, and they did adult level work. The young man on the left there, Noah, got his PhD in physics. This is a farm community, right? Like a PhD in physics. And the one on the right, Jeremiah, is an emergency room nurse at the hospital where my wife was brought. That's Jeremiah on the left in the emergency room as a nurse. Couldn't be more proud. We also did not know if the water was safe to drink in my town because we all have private wells. You know how it is in the rural communities. There's no water system. I have a private well. I live in town. The school has a private well. So we thought, is the well water safe to drink? We went to the university. We worked with the professors and students. My students learned to run an inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer. They ran for 3 weeks water samples from every well in town through a mass spectrometer and did a full spectral analysis and did a data report using Microsoft Excel and gave every family a personal well quality report. The 2 students who had my water sample from my home said, "Mr. Berger, we'd like to talk to you in the hallway." This is what you say to kids usually. It's not what your kids say to you. And I was like, okay. And these 2 girls took me out in the hallway. They said, "There's some bad news about your water. Do you want to hear it now or do you want to wait for your report?" And I said, "Give it to me now." And they showed me the report. I now have a water filtration system in my house thanks to my students' research. Some people said to me, "How can you trust students to run a $500,000 testing machine?" And I said, "Oh, you don't think students that are 10 and 11 years old are capable of running a mass spectrometer?" And I was like, "No." And I said, "All right, how about this? There's a new video game. I'm going to give a 10-year-old the controller, and I'm going to give you the controller. Who's going to learn that game faster?" And they're like, oh yeah, the 10-year-old. Like, kids learn that stuff way faster than adults, always. And I thought, how is the mass spectrometer any different? These kids learned to use the mass spectrometer faster than I would have, and they ran it perfectly for 3 weeks. And the other thing that was great was that they just spent 3 weeks working in a university. So even though their parents had not gone to university, they felt like, we've been in a university, we could do this. Like, it gave them a whole sense that this could be in my future. It changed the course of so many of the futures. That well report is now in town hall with every other report. And because you know when you live in a small rural community, you know where every one of your students is. Elena, who's on the cover there of the well report, I just want to show you her today. Here she is today. She is a teacher in the Bronx, the poorest section of New York City. Again, a student I am so proud of. She went to university, she got her teaching degree, and she's a teacher. I want to take you into a school in Boston, Massachusetts, where the students studied snakes. In Australia, snakes are not always loved, just to say. In fact, everywhere, snakes are not always loved. But they studied snakes, and they created an interactive field guide to snakes all over the world, where every student did an illustration of a snake and a day in the life of that snake through multiple drafts over many days. These are 8-year-olds, and their work is extraordinary. And they shared it with the world through their free ebook that was online. Any one of these pages on the ebook, if you open it on your iPad, you click on it and you hear the student who wrote it narrating her work in a beautiful narration voice. You hear music in the background that the student chose and played and composed herself. And then you hear sound effects on a third audio track that they layered in. So these 8-year-olds learned the software, they did the illustrations, they did the writing, they went through 10 drafts of everything, and they created this. I want to take you into that classroom for a moment and show you what it looks like when little kids are obsessed about quality. I have to admit I haven't tested the audio on this, so it might work.
Crocodiles are predators.
When students are feeling excited and empowered by what they are learning, it creates the right conditions for producing really high quality work. And getting really high quality work from every student means they have to go through a process of critique and revision. We began thinking about our scientifically accurate drawings of our snakes by looking at models done by kids from earlier years.
What are some stars we can give about Goodness's snake shape? Some compliments, some kind critique.
I like how he wrote the head and the tail where it's supposed to be.
Students worked on one aspect of illustration at a time, starting with their snake shape.
I want you to now think about stairs. What are some stairs, some things that he can work towards in his next draft? Turn and talk.
Yeah, I think he should make the head look it kind of looks like it's sagging down. So I can make it round.
I wanted students to not only understand how to look carefully like scientists at the work, but also be able to enhance their ability to give critique and feedback by using our rubrics.
If the target's met, that means that every single place that the lines are smooth. Do you see smooth lines? Where do you see some smooth lines? Okay. Do you see smooth lines everywhere? Can you point a few lines where they're not so smooth? Okay, so did she hit the target for that? Okay, so is she getting started?
I've been traveling around the country for the past 10 years with a story called Austin's Butterfly about the power of critique and feedback. And that story has become a phenomenon in a way. It's taken off internationally. Tens of thousands of students and teachers have found it a provocation to create beautiful work. It's not bad, and it is a butterfly, but does it look exactly like this? And people often ask me, what would it look like if that Austin's Butterfly process was always there in a classroom? What could a classroom look like? And I'm not sure I've ever seen a classroom that's a better example of that than this classroom.
Would you agree that the size, how wide this
We have 3 things that we always ask kids to do when we're doing a critique. Be kind, be specific, and be helpful. And after the kids practiced, we began the process of going back and critiquing each other's work. And what I find is that in the beginning, kids are really great about being kind.
I like that you made like the tail, because I can see in the picture, that it goes up.
So at the beginning, we don't see a lot of very helpful or specific feedback. Over time, as kids do this, and we're talking about over several weeks, as they practice, critique, and their drawings improve, you can see that the kids begin to recognize the value of that specific and helpful feedback.
Like right here is like more line, so one thing I do to go to the computer, I go like that, and then I go like that, and then I erase the lines, and then I just make it how my fingers were. And the negative space here should be a little bit smaller. And the negative space here could be bigger.
I also needed to be able to sit with kids individually to help them improve their ability to give critique. So I needed a process in my classroom to give kids more independence in their work.
But some of you yesterday finished a draft and were really hoping to get some critique from peers. For example, Marguerite finished one of her snake shapes. So Marguerite would find her name, this was Marguerite Asian Rock Python, and what Marguerite would do is she would move her name to being ready for a peer critique. Anybody else who's ready for a peer critique would move their name to ready for a peer critique.
I've used the project board with kids for a long time, and that helps them become the co-managers of the critique process. They can see where anyone is in the classroom at any time, and I can see where anyone is in the classroom at any time, and then they can choose a partner to go and do critique with. It's great because it means kids aren't always going to their friends. It's great because they can take more ownership over the critique process themselves. Over time, we focused on other physical features like scales, patterns, and color, and along the way, we worked with different experts who taught the kids specific techniques.
So, okay, so sometimes we're going to see just plain on circles. Sometimes you see ovals.
Yeah, I see diamonds.
Ooh, oh my goodness, like perfectly perpendicular diamonds, like that.
And for each new aspect of their illustration, we created a rubric and had opportunities for critique and feedback.
I like how your scales are going to the direction of where the body is. Like something that you can work on, like a stair, is trying to make all the scales the same size. I had to make the big because here, you know how it's facing towards Toronto?
Getting kids to do their best work is what learning expeditions are all about. It's not just about doing it when we're doing our high-quality artwork. We take the same process, then we can apply it to the way we craft our written stories. Or in our school, we can do the same thing when we think about all the music that's essential in our school. Learning how to do your best work and learning that that happens through a process of critique and revision is very empowering for students. It sets them up for success in any academic or personal venture in the future.
Okay, I'm going to end in a couple minutes. We're going to have a break. And when we come back, we'll have Kate and Gwyn give you a sense of all this beautiful work could not exist if it wasn't in a school that made it possible. It's not just the great teaching in this classroom, it's the school culture, it's the whole ethic of the school. And there's no school I know better than Kate's and Gwyn's to be a model of that. There's a lot of structures behind this, a lot of structures to build that culture. They'll mention them today, and tomorrow we'll dig into them. Before I leave you for your break, to stretch break, let's say 5-minute break. That really means 10 minutes, I know. So we'll say a 5-minute break when I'm done. But before I do leave you, I want to show you one last 2-minute video, because these students were real civil rights, social justice warriors in this class. And they discovered something that really upset them, which is snakes are discriminated against. People hate snakes. They say bad things about snakes. They kill snakes. When they kill snakes, other people thank them for killing snakes. This is in Australia. It's also where we live. They said someone has to stand up for snakes. So they thought we could do a public service announcement on television that we should value snakes. But then they learned that the television company wouldn't necessarily show it if they created it. Then they thought, we'll write an editorial for the newspaper, but then they learned that the Boston Globe wasn't just going to publish it because they wrote it. So they thought, we'll do an end run around all these adults who are trying to stop us with our message, and we'll create a music video, and it will go viral. And we said, just because you create a music video doesn't mean it will go viral. And they said, if it's good, it will. And so they didn't do it in one afternoon. They spent 2 months creating a music video about why we should value snakes. They found a songwriter to come in and help them do the lyrics. They found a dancer to come in and help them choreograph their music video. They watched music videos and created rubrics of what makes a good music video. And then they found someone who was willing to donate a music studio for the recording of their music video. They released it, and they were right and we were wrong. It had 50,000 views in the first year. They took a song that was existing. The song was by an artist named Lady Gaga. And the song is called Born This Way. And it's about accepting people who are different because that's the way they are. Love them for who they are. And they rewrote the lyrics with the help of this songwriter to be, snakes are born this way. So I'm going to end with that 2-minute video. We'll take a 5-minute break, which will really be 10 minutes. And then you'll have the incredible fortune of listening to Kate and Gwen talk about what does this look like on a whole school level.
It doesn't matter if you're scared of them or not. Just open up your heart because snakes were just born this way. Our teacher told us in second grade, leave me herpetologists. If you don't know, that means we study snakes from everywhere around the world. There's nothing wrong with having scaly skin. We say snakes are all made perfectly. So watch them slithers because they'll go far, even with no legs and arms. No need to be scared of snakes, they're not all the same. You can't change who they are. Snakes are born this way, they are a part of this world. Don't judge snakes by their looks, you can't change who they are. Snakes are born this way. Did you know that without snakes, mice would eat up all the grapes? There would be no food for cows. Without having time enough, no time. We need snakes, baby, they are born this way. You can't change who they are. Snakes are born this way. That was great.
All right, thanks for listening for so long.
This is me and my good friend Andy Frakes. We are the founders of XP in Doncaster. Those are our actual school ties that we have kept, both from Doncaster. I met Andy as the head teacher of a school called Campsmount in the north of Doncaster, and I was working alongside him, and one Saturday night, Sunday morning, I got a phone call to say that the school had burnt down. It was an electrical fire in the kitchen. I've always got to say that because everyone goes, oh, which kid? And it burnt down almost all the school, as you can see. And the reason we reference that is because that happened on a Saturday night, Sunday morning, and on the Monday morning we all met as a senior leadership team at a local community centre, and the kids were already there and saying, what can we do to help? And over the week we managed to construct the school within the town and put in a timetable together where our kids learnt in business offices, in some primary schools that had some spare classrooms, and some youth club centres. And it made us think about what a school was. Most of us think, as I did then, that a school was a building stuffed with kids and teachers. But we realised that a school is a community. So when we got the chance to build a school, we didn't say we were building a school, we said we were building a community. When we decided to create a new school, Andy actually built the school back up, and I went to this school in San Diego called High Tech High that was referenced. This is Larry, he was the CEO of High Tech High, and it absolutely blew me away the way the school looked. And I'd gone there to see something called project-based learning, which I thought was an interesting way to deliver the curriculum. But what I saw was a whole new way of delivering school, not just the curriculum. But I'm going to keep referencing this. We couldn't go back to England and build a high-tech high in England because when you're at high-tech high, they don't plan out all the standards, so we can't show that all the standards that we will be delivering. So while the government in England give us loads of freedoms, you can do what you want, you don't have to do the national curriculum. We also have, well, what we call the education police. We have Ofsted, or sometimes we call them the Grand Inquisitors. Who go, yeah, you've got loads of freedoms and we're going to judge you. So you don't have to do the national curriculum, but it's got to be as broad as the national curriculum, i.e. the national curriculum. So we wouldn't, if we did High Tech High, if we did a school like High Tech High, we'd get inadequate and it would close. So we had those shackles, and we had to learn what we could do within those restraints of our system. So while we started a brand new school from scratch, you know, we're in a real privileged position to start from a blank sheet of paper, which you guys have existing schools. We still had certain parameters that we had to build our school within. So it'd be good for you to reflect on what your parameters are, or what do you perceive your parameters to be, and where's the wiggle room, and what can you do, and what are the barriers. While we were at High Tech High, the art teacher, Jeff Robbins, said, oh, you need to look at Ron Berger. He told us that there was this book, An Ethic of Excellence, and as a male punk from Doncaster, I'm proud to say that when I read that book I only cried 3 times. I emailed Ron. I worked out as a techie guy. I worked out Ron's email and emailed him, and I've still got his email, his reply. It was sort of like, hi Gwyn, I almost spammed your email because of your name. I thought it was like a made-up name. But luckily, I read your email, and I've got an hour on a Monday if you'd like to fly over from England and spend an hour with me on this random Monday. So that's what we did. And Ron being Ron, he spent the whole day with us, and it was the best professional development of our lives. We went to visit a number of schools, especially over time. We went to see King Middle in Portland, Maine, not Portland, Oregon. That was a story. I emailed the head teacher, Mike. Yeah. Mike, yeah. I emailed the head teacher, said, hi Mike, we're stopping in this hotel we've hired a car. Can you just tell me how long it's going to take to get from the hotel to the school? You know, given rush hour and stuff." And he said, "About 6 days." It's Portland, Maine, not Portland, Oregon. So I had to change the hotel. But when we saw expeditionary learning, we realised that was a model that we could take over to England. It was an instructional model. It worked with the standards that we had to show, that we had to evidence that we did. And it still allowed our kids to create beautiful work, to express who they are through the work. And so we adopted and adapted EL's practice. Okay, I think you need to explain this one.
This has got something to do with it. So while this was happening, while Gwyn was thinking about setting up a school in England, we built a house at the same time, and obviously we'd started to set up a family. Thankfully, my background is mental health nursing, because I think that was what helped me get through that time. Keep my well-being and my mind sane. So when we got into the beginning of the education, I was like, there is no way I'm getting involved. I am not going to work in your school because children are scary. But as we went along and we started developing it, it gave me a chance to really reflect back on my own education, and myself and Gwyn had very different educational upbringings. I went to a private boarding school and was very entitled to experiences. I got to do whatever I wanted to do at school, and some of these experiences were great, some not so good. But it made me reflect on the fact that every kid should have those experiences, whether you've got money or not. And some of those experiences that I had, we did things like the Duke of Edinburgh Award scheme. It was just normal that you got to do this. It made me think of some of the poorer experiences that I'd had, and why were they, you know, if we want our kids to have experiences to help with their learning, what was different? And there was a lot to do with the reflection of the experience, the discussion of it, and it was then discussing that with Gwyn as we were talking about his school and what we wanted to do, that it made me aware that, you know, we can provide our children with these experiences, but it's how we do that, what the purpose of that is, and then how we discuss it so we can take that learning to the next stage of our education. So as I got involved in helping our staff to set up that culture, the culture that we want to provide for our children, and we immerse our staff in activities that provide an environment for them to feel, to see, to witness, and to live that cultural experience. And I think we'll be discussing more about that tomorrow. And then I think what I'm working on currently, what my research is on, is something that I've noticed within our education, that what I say implemented 10 years ago, these purposeful experiences, sometimes those experiences and those activities can be just done because they were done 10 years ago. And it's about the purpose of that experience, and that's really that's the most important thing, that whatever you're doing, whatever activity it is, it needs to be purposeful to set up the impact that you want on those children, and then how you debrief that, how you can take that learning and transition it to, say, a maths class, or what they learned about themselves, what they felt, what did it feel like to be out of their comfort zone in that activity, and how can they benefit from that when going, say, to their science lesson or an English lesson. So my work at the moment is about purposeful experiences, why we use experiences, why we use activities, and then how we discuss those with the children so that they can take that learning beyond that classroom. Is that right?
So while Kate was busy making a family for us, that was Jack, by the way, in that picture. This is me and Andy looking a bit like Smurfs in the front of XP, our first school that we built in 2012. There's Jack, a bit older than he was in the first picture, with his application form for our school. Luckily, the people who built the school get to send their kids there. So, Jack, that's amazing! Oh, wonderful! The intake of our school is random. It's random allocation. So across the whole of Doncaster, anyone can apply, and the local authority press a button, and they use a website called random.org, which apparently uses air pressure to measure its own randomness. And Jack would be able to explain that now. And 50 kids come out on the list, pretty much. That's XP on the left, and XP East is on the right. 3 years later, I was getting a bit annoyed with people telling me, "That's great, Gwen, you can do all this great stuff in a school. There's 250 kids in XP. That's great, you can do that, but how do you scale?" So we built another school right next to it, and we were doubled in size. Currently, I could build another 10 schools there and still fill it up, because we are, I think, 13 times oversubscribed at this moment in time. So we must be doing something right, I think. We wrote about that experience, and like Ron said, that we share all our stuff. So if you're generous, you can go to our shop and buy a physical copy of our book, How We XP, for £9.95. That's about 60,000 Australian dollars. Or you can scan the QR code and get it for free digitally. I'll move on then. Right now, we've got 3 secondary schools. We've built a school actually in Gateshead. Does anyone know Newcastle Gateshead around here? Anybody? No? Oh, brilliant. That's awesome. That's the northeast of England. A very similar demographic of Doncaster, predominantly white working class, ex-coal mining towns. But so all our schools are in Doncaster apart from the secondary school in Gateshead. They're in their 4th year now, and are probably our strongest school right now. And we were joined by 5 existing primary schools. So as well as creating new schools from scratch, we've also assimilated existing primary schools into our trust. They're all government funded, free to go. I'm really pleased to say that you use the word public properly. We don't. Our public school is a private school. Like, you have to pay to go to public school in England. That doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense here, so well done. As you can see, we've got high economic deprivation in Doncaster and Gateshead. Also, we seem to have a more special educational needs in our schools too. So I've only put that up to say that it's not your leafy, we say leafy posh school. I don't know if that translates. Predominantly white working class anyway. So I'm going to play a video. It's 10 minutes and it's quite specific, and it's 10 minutes long. As you're watching this, I want you to think about and maybe note down the constructs that you see, the structures that you see, the rituals that you see. Because when you have the privilege to create a school from scratch, you can think about these things, and you think about, what do we need to do to enable the great work that you've seen Ron show? You know, how do we enable our kids to express who they are through their work? How do we get along? How do we get our stuff out into the community? So I want you to watch this video. with a perspective of looking at what constructs you hear. You might hear a lot of words and things that you might not have heard before. So if you want to write those down and have those questions, because I'm going to ask you to discuss them and push back, be sceptical, and think about how you could or could not do those things in your contexts. So I'm hoping this video will play. It's the sound not coming through. What's that? How did you do it wrong? Oh, look. This one? There you go. Thank you. Ron's my IT technician.
I struggle a lot with my learning, and in what I did in primary, and I feel like when I come here, I've learned a lot more.
I would say I've never worked so hard in my professional career, but actually I've never enjoyed my teaching so much. It's brilliant.
So here, how big that ring is now? So that must have been a really wet year.
Urban's rule, excellent. Log in.
XP School in Doncaster teaches students through learning expeditions. In its first GCSE results in 2019, subjects taught this way delivered scores more than half a grade higher than the national average. 11 times oversubscribed, it has never hired a single supply teacher in 5 years, and it's permanently excluded just one pupil, ever.
We focus on three things. Yeah, we focus on character growth, we focus on creating beautiful work, and we focus on academic progress. And we believe that if you focus on growing as a character, you will create beautiful work, and as a consequence of those two things, you will achieve academically.
Staff at XP spend a great deal of time planning their expeditions at the start of every term. They come up with their own ideas for the theme, often inspired by contemporary events. Kerry Ponsier, a Year 7 humanities teacher, works with her colleagues to think of a guiding question which will drive the whole project.
So we're thinking of like an environmental expedition, and we're taking the story of the Law Act by Dr. Zeus as our inspiration.
A key element of it is that we meet as a group of staff, so it's about having that rigour and having that accountability amongst each other. It's all public, and we do a lot of that here because planning expeditions is really, really complicated. They get a sense of fire in their bellies because they love the work that they're doing. It's powerful, powerful stuff, and so our staff work incredibly hard. And that's why it works.
Each expedition at XP is mixed ability and cross-curricular, but is carefully mapped to the standards required for the national curriculum and for GCSEs, including the core subjects of English, Maths and Science.
You might want to actually show a distance handgraph.
It involves fieldwork in the local area, experts coming into school and creating a product at the end of it to show off to families and the wider community. Staff must make the product themselves first to make sure it's doable for students.
If we've been through the process, we know exactly what the children are going to have to go to, so we can plan for that accordingly. Because sometimes what you think is going to work, it doesn't work out like that. It can throw your plans totally out the window. So if we kind of done a little mock-up kind of prototype first, chances are it's going to work. Ready? 1, 2, 3. So that's what I've created.
The next stage is immersing students in the topic they will be looking at. At the end of the week, They begin to guess what the guiding question is.
Guiding question. Ruby.
How can we contribute to like saving the trees?
Right. Who speaks for the trees? We. Show you this. Alright. So, this is going to be the driver for the expedition as well.
To bring the project to life, students spend a day at the nature reserve near the school to learn more about forests.
Bats are protected. We don't just protect the trees in this woodland. There's certain animals that are protected as well by the Countryside and Wildlife Act.
In the afternoon, it's time for what XP call a solo.
That one there. Yeah.
Every student is led to a tree to spend an hour and a half beneath it, alone with their thoughts.
So the idea behind Solo is to give our students an opportunity to reflect, and we want students to reflect on how they've grown as characters since they first joined us. And we've also asked them as well to write a letter to their future self, to kind of think about how they might grow in the future as well. And then students have also been asked to answer the guiding question or have thoughts about the guiding question.
Video games took over my life. Still are. I've just like forgotten about video games. Today I'm just gonna come back like I've learned something about myself that I could actually survive without electronics.
Like, I've never done something like that before, and it makes you think about everything and reflect on everything that you've done.
It's just absolutely wonderful, and just to see students grow over one day, you can't put it into words.
Next, it's time for the students to put all their research on their topic into one piece of extended writing. They simplify into notes what they've learnt from the field trip, experts coming into school, the immersion week and anything else. Staff help them structure their essay and students publicly critique each other's work.
So this is like the main plan. It's going to help you like do the introduction and then like setting the context and then the conclusion, like the causes and impacts.
The extended writing will be graded and the students themselves will be assessed through the school's own character goals.
So the two key methods of assessment here at XP are first of all our HOWLs, which are our habits of work and learning. So within that we assess for working hard, getting smart and being kind. And then in addition to that, we also assess academic progress. What we found this year, there's been such a clear correlation between the fact that if students are working hard, getting smart, it means that they become kinder, but they also achieve academically.
Our curriculum's built on what we call powerful knowledge, which is about giving our kids the knowledge to change the world about them. And you can see that in our curriculum. Our kids have written books about the miners, the railway, the NHS, the suffragettes, and all their products are out there in the real world.
The final product this term will be a permanent reminder of the expedition on a wall in the school for all to see. The expedition ends with the presentation of learning to families.
Hello and welcome to E25's presentation of learning.
Our beautiful rainforest cities are making way for your ugly concrete jungles.
So, will you speak to the trees with me?
Students develop their confidence by speaking publicly about what they've learned, and then their product is unveiled.
I am Lawrence. I speak to the trees.
Well, it was a fantastic presentation. I'm really impressed with the confidence that the kids speak with about subjects like this as well. It's really impressive, yeah. in XP, I've seen his confidence grow.
It's like we've won the lottery.
Yeah, it is. Like a year in and they still want to come.
Yeah, they want to get here early, don't they? Leave late. Love it.
This is a typical turnout. You know, we get very close to 100%, often 100%. So it's all part of it. We bring the community into school.
It's amazing. I wish I were when I was younger. I've never seen anything like it.
In 2017, Ofsted rated XP as outstanding in all categories. In 2019, all students took History GCSE, and a quarter of them got the top grades of an 8 or 9. XP's curriculum has purpose and is rooted in a traditional model of developing character and high academic standards. Its message to other schools is, you can do it too.
I've been told by a number of people that this approach costs too much. It takes too much time for people to do. There's not teachers that can do this. I've been told lots of things, but my answer is come and see it for yourself. Okay, so time 3 minutes. Discuss with your shoulder partners or your triads, did you call it, right? Yeah, your triads. What resonates with you and what are you sceptical about? 3 minutes. Right, thank you. got to say, like, this is my second week, and I've got to say, Australian teachers are very well behaved. Didn't even have to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, quality audience, or all that rubbish. Brilliant, well done. Okay, so I'm inviting what resonates with you and what are you sceptical about? We're all teachers here.
We thought it all resonated beautifully. We just thought of, as adults, we would probably be sceptical about sitting under a tree for an hour and a half. Like, as in the time frame.
The solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So solo is an outward bound activity and probably the hardest thing in the world to sell. Yeah. Like, I'm going to put you under a tree, I'm going to leave you there for 2 hours, and it's going to change your life. £1,000, please. Like, but honestly, I don't know if anyone's been outward bound. But the solo, like you can do caving, you can do what's the thing jumping off the bridge? What's it called? Abseiling. Yeah. They were all alright for me. Leaving me alone on my own with my own head freaked me out. Yeah. Yeah. Really, really difficult.
But
yeah.
we do use protocols. We structure it for people. We do leave them there, but we give people guides and things on how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
And is it always just bang out an hour and a half straight away?
No, it can be half an hour or yeah. Thank you.
How do your older kids go when they're moving up into their senior year and have to sit the public exams around physics and chemistry and those types of things that need some fairly high levels of knowledge to be able to pass stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So as we get closer to the exam, we have to go less expeditionary and more discrete. So we don't teach expeditionary everything. Yeah, I mean, like, so if you're a maths teacher, I can't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to teach statistics through learning expeditions. It's like perfect for that. But quadratic equations, maybe not so much. Yeah. So, but because our kids do learn mainly through expeditions, when they need to learn discrete, you need this for the exam, they're okay with it. Because they don't do that all the time. That's a great question, thank you. There's a real balance there. Thank you.
When we were talking about the fact that we loved the fact that staff were planning beforehand, coming up with something, and then going to the kids, that was resonating with us.
Oh, thank you, yeah. A good friend of mine, Michelle Navarra, who's the principal of Polaris Academy in Chicago, which is just an amazing school. It wasn't not her quote, but she said to me, teaching is what you do before you stand up in front of the kids. It's pretty smart. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that and I get that. I guess that is something that I'm not necessarily sceptical about, but it challenged me about that because with looking at building student agency, where's the student agency piece in that when it's planned, tested by the teachers beforehand?
Right, thank you, yeah. Right, yeah, so you can see that our curriculum is not what is it that you want to do. Yeah, it's not built directly from the kids. I want to do this, or I want to do that, I want to do that. It's deliberately constructed, it's knowledge rich, it is teacher led, and it allows the kids to express who they are through their work. So while that expedition there was, well, the agencies through them discovering what was important to them and seeing their relationship between the world and trees and diversity and stuff the product was not one. The product is one that lives in our school. It doesn't live out in the community where you get activism and agency. But that is the balance that we've chosen. So I guess, do you know the big picture model here? Yeah, okay. So say if you've got conventional schools here, which is didactic teaching, you've got big picture maybe here, we're sort of a bit in the middle. And that's how we've chosen to be able to survive in our industry in the UK. Again, we couldn't open a big picture school in England because you can't show what you are going to do, because it is built from the child's wants, like the high-tech high. I know that personally, because Doncaster has the only big picture school in England, and it's an alternative provision that we support. Great question, thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah, can you just talk me through the process about engaging the community and how you get them to come along? Because I'm assuming they would have been sceptical, the broader community, but there's obviously an inherent interest in when they're sending their kids there, so they're always going to engage in it. But can you talk to me about the broad community engagement you've done to, I suppose, market your school?
Well, I think we'll do that tomorrow. I think what we can do tomorrow is, because we're doing a big piece on making work public, so if we make a note of that, and we'll address that tomorrow. Thank you. That's a great question. One more. I want one more. Yes, please.
I was wondering what your staff retention has been like. Have you found that when staff have joined your school, they are quite passionate and want to stay on for years in a row?
That's a really good question, thank you. So, all our pioneering teachers, the teachers we started with 4 teachers and 50 kids. They're still with us. The vast majority of teachers are still with us. Some teachers join us thinking they know what it is, but then not being able to do the work. Like you heard the teachers that work really hard, yeah, and I make no bones about it. I make no apologies about it. We work hard, and it's a vocation. The types of schools that we lead, you can't just turn up, talk at kids, and collect your check and go home. You can't do that. And I make no apologies, because I think our kids deserve more than that. But thank you. Yeah, so this is a point I want to make as well. A lot of people, you see we get a lot of visitors, a lot of people come to our schools and they say, oh, it's really innovative, it's really progressive, amazing, it's all new. And I don't agree. I think that what we do is we double down on what is and what always has been. We call those things persistent problems. So when we talk about character, yeah, courage is not a new thing. Respect is not a new thing. Integrity is not a new thing. And what we do is we honour that problem with time to figure out how we create schools that can enable our kids to do work that activates courage, respect, craftsmanship and quality, integrity and compassion within them. And we will be doing that in 1,000 years' time if we've still got a earth to live on. So what I say is that we try and work out what the persistent problems are. And the 2 main structures that we have are crew, and we're going to go deeper into that tomorrow. And crew allows, the crew is our structure that says, in order to do great work, we've got to get on. We've got to get along, and we've got to have high quality communication. We can't just be nice to each other, we've got to be kind. We've got to have difficult discussions. We can't back away from difficult discussions, we've got to lean into them. If any of you have read business leader books like Simon Sinek or Adam Grant or Kim Scott. Kim Scott, the lady, wrote a book called Radical Candor, and radical candor is where it basically states you've got to have the relationships in order to do the hard work. So we start with crew and we start with staff crew, but we'll lean into that tomorrow. Our second structure are expeditions. So this is our beautiful work. So we have those guiding questions. We learn a bunch of stuff in order to create something, and the product that we create is just the tip of the iceberg. It doesn't encompass everything, but it's the tip of the iceberg, and it drives our learning forward. I'm not going to show you this video. We'll play that tomorrow. But I'm going to make these statements, and this is the sort of challenge to you all. We had the privilege of creating schools from scratch. We've also taken on primary schools into our trust, and they all do crew and they all do expeditions. But I would ask you to, when you think about your context, be cognizant, understand your deliberate and intentional social constructs, because it's not a school that you're in, it's a community. And a community is successful because of the people in there and their differences. You allow them to emerge, so go slow. Go slow. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. So we say go slow to go fast. Sounds weird, but it's right. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. And I'll go deeper into that in my session tomorrow. Share stories. So this is what we're doing. We're sharing stories with you guys. If you Google our school, it's not that we're showing off. It's that this is our strategy. Our strategy is to collect the amazing things that are happening in our school and share them with people, because that means that we're reflective on what we do, and we see when we're doing things right and we see when we're doing things wrong. That's our strategy. And this ties into what Ron says about the train. What a great metaphor that is. Yeah. If you come to England, everyone goes, oh yeah, I've come to England, I've been to London. Well, if you get on a train, then you can come to Doncaster. It'll take you an hour and a half. And you get off and you come and visit our schools. That's an open invitation there. Yeah. So get what we do to go deep. It starts with us. That's our challenge, is that this work, you think about what you want your students to do, but you've got to start with yourself. This work changes you, and that's the hard thing. That's the hard part. From fidelity to integrity. From doing crew, shallow learning, to being crew. Just to show that we share everything, these are our core practices, this is our why, this is our purpose. So you can either quickly write that xptrust.org/core practices, or yeah, there you go. Get your QR codes out. You were too slow for our free book earlier on. And we update that page every year. So within core practices, you'll see all our structures and rituals, and it starts with the purpose. It starts with why we do things. It unpacks how we do it right now and what it looks like when we get it right. Oh yeah, so see Jack on the left there? Yeah? That's Dylan in the middle. Kate just noticed that in that video, Dylan was one of the kids doing the presentation learning. He's now doing his A-levels. And this is Beth. You see Ron and his beautiful wife Elaine. Andy was taking the photo. This one, this video, I'm just going to play a bit at the beginning. It's because it's half an hour, so I'm going to play you a bit at the beginning. But this is Beth, so if I go back, there's Beth in her, she's wearing pyjamas, I think. This is Beth for her final word. The BBC were around at our school and made a documentary, and they gave us the full-length version of this. So I'll just play you the first few minutes.
So I see that you've got a kind of like maybe like an audience filing in just now.
Yeah.
So what is it that's happening here this morning?
Basically, it's like the checkout of XP. So you say your bit and then you leave, but it's just like an opportunity to say thank you to the school, thank you to your teachers, people who have helped you grow.
Okay. And you've got a kind of personal connection to the school as well, don't you?
Yeah. My dad created the school along with Gwyn when at Paris, so
he's bought a box of Kleenex with him then. I'm sure he's super emotional for
yeah, I mean, I'm the one who's brought the tissues, but I'll be handing them out. But
yeah, well, good luck. Looking forward to it.
Thank
There
you.
we go. That's the sign. It's time to stop.
Yeah. Right, hello everyone. Welcome to my final word. It's lovely to see you all here. You know, you all mean a lot to me. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to sort of say out like my last expedition. So we're going to answer this guiding question throughout my final word. So yeah. So how was my time at XP shaped me as a person and a learner? Okay, so case study 1, the importance of crew. Learning target, I can reflect on the importance of crew and write about my character growth. So I've got some questions for me to like answer all the way through. So what has been your favourite experience or memorable moment of crew? And why does this stand out to you? So it's got to be Wales. Like, that's just the best thing about XP, I think. It was just such a brilliant time. It was just so fun to just get to know my crew on the first week. And you know, it's like a bond for life after that. So yeah, I loved it, and there's always in our gear. Okay, so what is the purpose of crew? So I thought I had an answer back then when I was 11, and I think the answer now has changed quite a lot. But in many ways it remains the same. So I think crew is unexplainable really. That's why when staff and students first join, they're immersed onto Outward Bound. Because without the experience of crew, without living it firsthand and sharing it with other people, it cannot be felt or explained. Crew is most definitely a feeling, a sense of being a part of something more than just yourself. Crew is the metaphor for being selfless. It's something that you don't gain overnight. That's the best way I can describe it, and without these 5 years to have experienced it, I don't think I could come up with a better answer. And I think an example of that is you, Miss Pullen, because I remember at first in year 8 when we got you, I was like, Jesus, like, another woman. Like, I was just like, oh no, like, change crew leaders, like, we're not going to make a bond, and now we're just, you know what I mean, like, best friends. So that's just an example of how crew, you've got to live it to know it, do you know what I mean? So then I've just got a few little pictures. So yeah, this is like my crew in year 7, doing some, like, some weird like exercises. And
then it goes on for half an hour, and it gets up to it. There we go. Just to give you a flavour.
Shy, it was kind of like I was starting my journey at XP all over again, you know, making new friends so like far into XP, where you just, it was literally like I'd known you forever. You're just an incredible person, and thank you, Kira. I just love you. Stay in touch with you forever. Definitely. Gonna be your retired friend. Obviously. You're a lifelong friend to me, Kira. Definitely. No,
I think the greatest thing for me is I've not been here very long, and it's taken me a year probably to see the difference that this school makes. I was so privileged for you to ask me to come to your final word, and given that I've not known very long, and to sit here, and I think the most important thing is to work with people that have inspired my children and you, because I'm really starting to see how everybody makes a difference, and that's the beauty of this school.
Every time I've talked to you there, and since you arrived in school, you were reminded to me every day of what I've been the story.
Thank you. Well, just to say, you passed the test. You would have got an A, but you got B for balls. Yeah, I feel that fact. Me and Dylan and Matt in Aberystwyth. Yeah, so I just can't wait to see watch you grow up with 9 boys too. So, this is the future.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
And there's a picture of my 2 boys, Jack, who was the picture in the belly earlier, Dylan, who you might have spotted, you probably didn't, but he was a little blonde kid doing the presentation learning, and that's Beth, and there's some random American guy in the middle just outside our house, which you may have seen on Grand Designs. I don't know if I'll get that one in. There you go. But the message here, and I couldn't think of a more poignant quote really, coming to Port Lincoln and looking at our kids. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we've got about 15 minutes, yeah,
Yeah.
For Q&A. Ron, do you want to?
Yeah, no, we want your skepticism. We want your how do we make this work where we are. Any questions for Kate, for Gwen, or for me right now? Tomorrow we'll dig in deeply to some of the strategies. We'll talk about crew, we'll talk about presentations of learning, we'll talk about the leaders of their own learning work. But even on the overview, what's on your mind right now? So what are the things where you're thinking, this is great, but it couldn't work for me because that's what we want to hear. Or, this could work for me and this is what I'm excited about, but the skepticism is fine.
Ron, can I ask a question?
You sure can.
Not all teachers are going to go for this, and we're in the middle of a teacher shortage, so,
Great.
you know.
Great. So can I just say thank you, Rowena, for modeling the courage to ask a skeptical question. I would guess there are a lot of leaders here who are thinking, yeah, but my teachers are not all going to go for this. Thank you for modeling. That's what we want. We want the hard questions. There's no easy answer to that. There'll always be skeptical teachers. We want to welcome their skepticism. Not their cynicism, but their skepticism. Teachers and leaders should be skeptical of new ideas. They should be skeptical of new things. We want to hear it, we want them to articulate it, but we want to get back to why did you become a teacher in the first place? Why did you enter this profession? If you have your teachers sit down and write, why did they join the teaching profession? Why are they doing this? It's going to be deep and noble, the things they write. They got into this profession to change lives, to shape human beings, to do important work. And then if we have the conversation, could we do more to make that real for you now? I think every teacher wants to do great things. I really do. I believe in them. And I would welcome their skepticism and the conversation about, we can't change everything, but what could we do more of that could make this more fulfilling for you, more rewarding for you, make your job richer? Because I believe that's what all teachers want. They want to do beautiful work. Gwen, what would you say? Okay.
I taught for 6 years, and I taught computers And I always think, oh, sorry, computers, it's like a boring subject, but it's not. The more I think about it, the more creative I think it is. And to talk to Rowena as a drama teacher, that some of our subjects, this is the only way you can teach it. So as a computer teacher, you have to do the project first. If I want to teach someone how to program something, I have to be able to program it myself. If I want to create a database, I have to be able to create a database myself. A spreadsheet, I have to create a database myself. And if you're programming something, you have to draft and redraft, because your first draft doesn't work, because the programs don't work, and you have to draft and redraft. And if you think about drama, it's the same thing, that you don't just say, right kids, Shakespeare, Act 1, and it's their best version, right? If you don't, you coach and you critique each other. So there are subjects where you have to do that, physical education, where you have to do these things. So for me, the question is sort of why not do it in English? Why not do it in maths? Why not do it in science? But it's something that you have to meet people where they're at. You can't just foist this on people. You've got in order to move a kid on, you've got to know where they're at. In order to move an adult on, you've got to know where they're at. In order to move an organisation on, you've got to know where they're at. So you've got to know the context. And again, it's that go slow to go smooth to go fast.
And in my organization, we have a staff of 200, and we are trying to spread some of these ideas that Kate and Gwen and I are sharing to reach 2 million students. Can I let you imagine how many skeptical teachers there are when we're trying to reach 2 million students? Like, we're talking about tens of thousands of skeptical teachers. So here's the guidelines we give. First of all, we never want to come across as judgmental and critical. We never want to tell teachers or leaders you're doing it wrong and we have the right way. Never, because we don't believe that. And we don't focus on what they're giving up. We don't say conventional stuff is wrong, you have to give that up. You have to take this on, it's new, it's better. Because all they'll think about is what they're losing. I don't want to lose my structures, I don't want to lose my curriculum, I don't want to lose what I depend on. If you say to parents, the way school's been done is wrong, the conventional way that you're so used to, we're going to get rid of it, they'll think, don't take that away. Even though they hated it themselves maybe when they were in school, it's what they know. They don't want to have it taken away. We never focus on what people are losing or giving up. We focus on the new opportunities we're giving. So we don't say to teachers, give up that, it doesn't work anymore, there's a new way of doing things, because they just get defensive and hold on. We say, you entered this profession to do great work. You want kids to be courageous in mathematics, in history, in science. We've got some new tools for you. We got new things you can do. We talk about the opportunities we're giving them, the teachers and the kids. And we don't talk about what they're leaving behind. We don't try to say, you have to give up the things that you care about. We say, here's some new opportunities and new tools for you. And we respect you. And if you're skeptical, give us your skepticism. So that we feel like we're treating them like professionals, and it makes a difference because they are professionals. We shouldn't tell them they're wrong. We should tell them we have new opportunities that they can try. And we can do this together. So it's a different sense of respect. Rowena modeled a really good courageous question. Who else is going to push us here? What else is hard here?
I'd say through the kind of performance-orientated environment, we've seen explicit instruction become a major pedagogical approach in our schools. And to a degree, it's probably seen a certain level of achievement occur. And so I think that, how do we kind of message that up and do that kind of thinking? uncoupling as discussed this morning. I think that'll be a real challenge.
Great, and I'll try, Lynn and Kate, if you want to add. So, direct instruction, explicit instruction, I would never tell someone that's wrong, because it's not wrong. It has a place. Sometimes direct and explicit instruction is really helpful. So if teachers are doing direct instruction and explicit instruction, I would never say, or leaders, I would never say, that's wrong, you have to give it up, because I don't believe that. I would say, great, if that's your only tool, that's a problem. Because there are so many other approaches, so many other lesson structures, so many other ways to get kids excited about content. And if the only thing you're doing is direct instruction, you don't have a lot of tools. So use it when it's useful, and then use all these other tools, and we have so many other tools for you. And if they say, oh, the schools that perform best on results use direct instruction, I say, oh yeah, that's true. And the schools that perform worst also use direct instruction. And in fact, in America, the schools that perform worst in the entire nation do nothing but direct instruction. And the more they get panicked because the students are not doing well, the more they use only direct instruction. So, decoupling them, Tammy, as you said, is very important. The students that are doing well in those schools, it's not because they're only using direct instruction. The schools that are struggling the most are using direct instruction also. Every school should use it, and every school needs a whole constellation of other approaches as well. You don't want to be your only pedagogy. If that's your only pedagogy, you're in trouble, because that's not the way the world works. That would be my response. Gwen?
Yeah, I mean that's the same narrative in England as about like the best schools use direct instruction, and that's the same answer that I would say as well. And also we use direct instruction too, and we look at cognitive load theory, and we look at lots of other simplification of how you deliver things. We just see that in order to activate the character traits in our kids that are already in them, we have to allow our kids to express who they are through the work. So we use expeditions as the main one, then thematically if we need to, and then direct instruction as a must.
Great, we might have time for one more, but tomorrow we have a whole day where you could ask hard questions. And when we're up at the pool, having a beer, you can come over and say, I didn't want to say this in front of the group, but that was crazy. You know, you could ask any hard question too. But one last one. Anyone want to push us on anything? Yes, thank you for the courage to speak up.
Probably not push you on anything, but just to say, as a cultural educator, with what I do and provide into the schools, that's really refreshing to hear what you are doing, and now you're offering additional support and new tools, because in this time and day with so many things like social media and technology, and trying to get learners, our students and people to connect with the relevance of education, they need this, they need other options. So it's really good to hear this and to see that those other options and stuff are available, and that it's about not cutting off one for the other but complementing.
I love that. It's not what we're taking away, it's what we're adding. We're not taking away from families, from kids, from teachers. We're adding new ideas. It's not taking anything away for people. It's adding new ideas. And the big difference, if you go to an XP school, is that you ask any kid, do you feel like you belong here? They're going to say yes. You ask any kid, do they believe in you here? They'll say yes. You ask any kid, do they listen to you here? They'll say yes. We speak up every day. People listen to me every single day. That was not true when I was in school. It's not true of most schools I visit. And the biggest challenge for our students doing well is how much they care, how much they feel they belong and are valued, and how hard they work. If you're in a school where you feel valued and you feel like you belong,
You're willing to put your heart in and work. And if that's not happening, a lot of kids are going to be disengaged. And I hate to say this, but I visit schools all over the world and most kids are disengaged. You ask kids and they're like, I come because I'm supposed to, but my heart's not here. But if you go to XP, you just don't hear that. Kids care, they want to be there, they feel happy to be there. So that's what we're aiming for. We're going to dig into actual strategies tomorrow. A lot of them might be just things you think, oh, that's useful, and a lot of them may not. But we'll be much more specific tomorrow about pedagogical strategies and school structures that we feel are important. We'll talk about crew, we'll talk about presentations of learning, we'll talk about all these different structures. I don't know if they'll be useful, but this evening there'll be drinks and food around the pool. You can come up and check in, make connections, ask any hard questions, and we'll dig in much deeper tomorrow. Thanks for all of your patience and willingness to listen to us and talk about this stuff today. We feel really honored to be here with you. Thanks.